Did you know that according to HSBC, 9 out of 10 people earning six figures don't feel wealthy? They think you need £200,000 to be wealthy, which is 6 times the average salary. If people earning over £100,000 are getting this wrong, what does that say about where you actually stand? This new study by HSBC has shown that on average, people underestimate their wealth by 30%, which means that if you think you're in the bottom 30%, you actually might be in the top 50%. And I'm about to show you exactly where you stand. So in this video, I'll be using the latest HSBC research that reveals a shocking truth about how wrong most Brits are about their financial position to show you exactly how the classes work, if you're closer to being rich or poor than you realize, and what you need to do to move up to the next class, which anyone can do regardless of your current income. But first, what class are you in right now? Well, most people have no clue where they actually stand. They think because they earn a decent salary or drive a nice car that they're doing well financially. But net worth tells a completely different story. I met a woman last month who was convinced she was upper middle class. She earns £75,000 a year, lives in a nice area, and goes on 2 holidays a year. On paper, she looked pretty wealthy. But when I calculated her actual net worth, the reality hit her like a brick wall. Her mortgage still had £180,000 left on it. She had £15,000 in credit card debt and a car loan of £12,000 along with £8,000 in a savings account. So when you take the value of her house minus all of her debts, her actual net worth was barely £25,000. She thought she was upper middle class, but she was actually working class and she didn't even realise it. Meanwhile, her neighbour who works as a plumber earning £40,000 had been quietly building wealth for years. No flashy lifestyle, no expensive car payments, but he'd been investing consistently and paying off his mortgage early. His net worth was £180,000. He was actually in a higher wealth class than someone earning double his salary. This is exactly what the new HSBC research revealed. There's a massive gap between what people think they're worth and what they're actually worth. Having a high income can make you feel wealthy, but calculating your net worth actually reveals the truth. So before we go any further, you need to know your real position. Add up everything that you actually own. Your savings, your pension, your investments, your car, and your house if you got one. Then subtract everything that you owe. So mortgage, credit card payments, loans, and car finance. That number, whether it's positive or negative, is your true financial position, also known as your total net worth. Make sure you're being as honest as possible with this calculation. If your house is worth £250,000, but you still owe £200,000 on the mortgage, then your wealth from this house is £50,000, not £250,000. Be brutally honest because you'll only be lying to yourself. Net worth can be broken down into two separate categories. Total net worth, which I just spoke about, and then liquid net worth. The difference is that total is everything, but liquid net worth is only the money that you can access and actually invest right now. So things like a car, house, or pension would be included in total net worth, but not liquid net worth as you can't access them instantly. You have to sell your car, your house to access the cash, and you have to be a certain age to access the funds in your pension. Think of it like the food in your house. The tins in the cupboard do count towards your total available food, but they're hard to access quickly. But the fruit on the table is what you can eat right now. When I get into the different classes and their thresholds, they will all be based on your total net worth, not your liquid net worth. But before we get into the classes, why is it that someone earning £70,000 in London can feel so broke, while someone up north in somewhere like Leeds can feel so much more comfortable on the same salary? Or why a $100,000 salary in New York City barely pays the bills, but in rural Ohio, it feels like you're living like a king? Well, it all comes down to regional cost of living. Your total net worth might put you in the middle class bracket nationally, but in a city like London or New York, where housing, transport and food are far more expensive, your lifestyle can feel closer to the working class line. But on the other side of that, in rural areas where costs are lower, the same net worth stretches so much further. Think of it like running with weights strapped to your legs. In London or New York, the weights are so much heavier. Every pound you earn doesn't travel as far. But in rural areas, you're running so much lighter, you can cover more ground with the same effort. National averages like the brackets we're about to break down are useful benchmarks, but your reality depends heavily on where you live. That's why it's better to track your own personal progression over time rather than just comparing yourself to national figures. So now that you know how to calculate where you really stand and different factors that impact this, let me show you exactly how the wealth classes actually work and what separates each level. There are exactly 5 financial classes in Britain, and most people get theirs completely wrong. Class 1 is working class. Your debts are bigger than your assets, and you're living month to month, typically renting or in social housing. Any emergency could properly put you in a crisis. The harsh reality here is that you're in the bottom 10% nationally. And what's mental is that someone earning £70,000 with £30,000 in debt is in the same class as someone earning £40,000 with no debt. Income doesn't determine your class, your net worth does. This is where your net worth is negative or close to zero. In the UK, if you've got a net worth of under £50,000, then you're going to be in the working class. Class 2 is lower middle class. You've got some breathing room, maybe a small emergency fund or a bit of house equity, but you're still pretty vulnerable. One major shock, like a car breakdown or losing your job, and you're back in the working class. Most people in this bracket think that they're middle class because they've got a decent salary, but financially, you're still closer to poverty than the true middle class. In the lower middle class, you'll have a total net worth of under £200,000. Class 3 is middle class. The UK average net worth for a household is just under £300,000. So if you're around this, then you're pretty much at the lower end of middle class. If you're in this class, then you're often a homeowner with some equity, you've got a decent pension pot along with some savings and your investments. You can handle emergencies without panic, and you're building wealth consistently, and you're not losing sleep over bills. You've got a comfortable lifestyle, but you're not financially free. In the middle class, you have a net worth below £750,000. Class 4 is upper middle class. You're officially above average and building serious momentum. The top 10% of households has wealth of at least 1.2 million or more. So if you're in the top end of this bracket, you're in the top 10% nationally. Your money is properly working for you now. And you're thinking about early retirement rather than just surviving. Your net worth will be under £2 million. Now, before we talk about the upper class, let's clear up one of the biggest financial debates: the difference between upper middle class and upper class. Upper middle class are high earners and high achievers. Think 6-figure salaries, professionals, senior managers, and business owners. Most of their net worth is tied up in property, pensions, and a lavish lifestyle, but they still need to work to maintain their standard of living. But upper middle class is the group with true financial independence. It's not about flashy cars or massive homes, it's about the fact that their wealth generates enough passive income to cover all living costs forever. To put it simply, upper middle class live comfortably but depend on work, whereas upper class are financially free regardless of their work. Think of it like a ladder. The upper middle class are standing firmly on the top rung, but they're still on the ladder. But the upper class have stepped off the ladder entirely. So with that, let's look at the upper class. Class 5 is upper class. You're in the top 10% of all British households. Money starts becoming a daily concern, work becomes more of a choice, and you've achieved what most people could only dream of. The top 1% of households has wealth of at least £3 million. And if you're there, you're properly wealthy by any measure. Your total net worth in upper class will be sitting under £10 million. And if you're above this, then you're an ultra high net worth person. You've probably got substantial land, businesses, inheritances, or investments. You've got generational wealth, so congratulations, you're in the top 0.1%. Out of all this information, what do you think makes up the biggest proportion of people's wealth? Is it their investments, or maybe money that they've inherited? Or is it actually property that makes up 40% of people's wealth, which is followed closely by pensions at 35%? So this shows that most people's wealth is locked up without them being able to use it however they want. So when you see or hear of people bragging about how much money they've got or something new that they've bought, don't compare yourself to them and think, oh, I'm poor and I've got no money, because you never really know the true net worth of someone. Because I guarantee they're not going to brag to you about a new loan they've just taken out or how much of their mortgage they've got left to pay. Hopefully you're with me and you're learning some useful information so far. But how do you know if you're doing well for your age? Is a 30-year-old with £100,000 wealthier than a 60-year-old with £500,000? Building wealth is like running a marathon. If you sprint at the start, you're going to end up knackered and end up walking the rest. But if you get halfway through and are feeling good, then you know you've got some energy to turn it up a notch. If you look on social media and think you should have 1 million by the time you're 21, then all you're doing is disheartening yourself, and this mindset will never build wealth. So we can look at the different ages and start to think about how much net worth you should have for your stage of life. By 30, you should be aiming for a net worth equal to half of your annual salary. So if you earn 50k a year, you should look to have a 25k net worth. This proves you're saving and investing early, not just spending all of your money down the pub as soon as it comes in. By 40, you should be near 2 to 3 times your annual salary. So if you're earning 50k, then you should be looking at something around 100 to 150k. This is where the savings and investments from your 30s start compounding and building wealth. By 50, it should be around 4 to 5 times your salary. So if you're earning 50k, then 200 to 250k should be where you're at. And at this point, your money should be working harder than you are. By 60, you should now be sitting around 6 to 7 times your annual salary and looking to retire without any stress about how you're going to fund the rest of your life. So a 50k salary would look like a net worth of 300 to 350k. Don't worry if you're looking at these figures and thinking I'm nowhere near that. They're just a guide, and everyone's situation is unique and lots of factors can play into where you currently are. Cost of living, career paths, and personal circumstances all have an impact. Think of this like the mile markers on the marathon that you're running. If you're ahead, then great, but if you're falling behind a bit, at least you've got something to work towards. The good news is, whether you're ahead of these benchmarks or behind them, the strategy for jumping to the next wealth class is pretty much exactly the same for everyone. The biggest lie about building wealth is that you need to earn more money, when the real strategy is right in front of you the whole time. Most people think you need a massive pay rise from your job to jump wealth classes, but this is completely rubbish. The difference between someone stuck in the lower middle class and someone climbing to the upper middle class isn't their pay slip, it's their plan. So here's what you need to do to move up to the next class, which anyone can do regardless of your income. If you're starting from negative or near zero net worth, your goal should be very simple. Take control of your money. Every pound you're paying in interest, every subscription you don't use, every impulse purchase, that's what's keeping you trapped. First, list every single debt that you've got. Credit cards, overdrafts, car finance, absolutely everything. Attack the highest interest rate first. Usually, credit cards charge you more than 20% annually. Even if you can only throw an extra £50 a month at it, that's £600 a year that stops working against you. Then you need to have a look at all of your expenses and cut out everything that isn't needed. In order to grow, you need to be really ruthless with this. Cancel Netflix if you watch YouTube more, and swap your £5 daily coffee for one at home in a flask to take with you. Cook instead of ordering a takeaway. I'm not saying live like a monk forever, but temporarily sacrifice comfort so that you can start your journey of building financial stability. Next, you want to try and build a £1,000 emergency buffer. Not in your current account where you'll spend it, but in a separate savings account. This stops you from reaching for your credit card when your boiler breaks or your car needs an MOT. Moving from lower middle class to middle class is where most people get stuck because they start to feel comfortable. But this is where you build the foundations for real wealth. You should look to automate absolutely everything. Set up a direct debit for at least £200 a month into a stocks and shares ISA. Make it automatic so you can't talk yourself out of it. The compound growth you'll get from this over 10 to 15 years will definitely shock you. If you've got a mortgage, then start to overpay. Even an extra £100 a month cuts years off your mortgage and saves you tens of thousands of pounds in interest. Your house equity is part of your total net worth, so every overpayment moves you up the wealth ladder. You should also be looking to max out your pension contributions, especially if your employer matches them. Free money is still free money regardless of your salary. And although you don't see that money just yet, it's all still going towards your future. Going from middle class to upper middle class is a completely different game. You've got momentum with the habits that you built from the earlier classes, so it's all about accelerating growth and diversifying your portfolio. Property can now be a serious earner for you, and you should be considering buy-to-let mortgages if you feel you've got the capacity to become a landlord. Having rental income coming in monthly is a sure way to skyrocket your wealth. When I say about diversifying your portfolio, that means investing beyond just index funds. You should be looking at corporate bonds, dividend-paying stocks, and maybe even peer-to-peer lending. You've got enough wealth now that losing 5% on one investment won't ruin you, and the risk versus reward could pay off massively. You should be looking at ways to earn money on the side of your main job. Try to think of ways that your money can earn money whilst you sleep. Dividend reinvestment, rental income, maybe even a small business if that's your thing. Moving from upper middle class to upper class is about optimizing and preserving your wealth for the future. You're not just building wealth anymore, you're protecting and growing what you've built. Being tax efficient becomes crucial, and you should be looking at ways to pay as little tax as possible. You should have an accountant or financial advisor in your corner to help you take your wealth to that next level. Every pound saved in tax is a pound that compounds for decades. You should consider high risk, high reward investments for a portion of your portfolio. With the level that you're at, you can afford to lose money on things that might pay off massively. You should now begin to think about how your wealth will be passed on to the next generation using things like trusts and inheritance tax planning. But here's something that applies to every single class transition. It's not about earning more, it's about keeping more and making it work harder. Someone earning 35k who saves and invests £400 a month will reach the upper middle class faster than someone earning 70k who spends every penny. The secret is to increase the gap between what you earn and what you spend as much as possible and then invest that gap consistently. Whether you earn 25k or 75k, if you can live on 80% of your income and invest the rest, you'll climb these wealth classes faster than you think is possible. Even after knowing exactly which class you're in and having the perfect plan on how to move up, you still might check your bank account balance and get that sinking feeling inside because you're broke. So watch this video right here if you want to learn how to feel rich even when you're not.